Good morning. My name is Donna Marie Collins. The date is November 1st, 2024. We are here for a zoning hearing. The name of the case is Daniels Town Square, MPD. The case number is DCI 2022-00059. All testimony and evidence that I accept during these hearings must be taken under oath. I will administer the oath to everyone in the room at one time at the conclusion of my remarks. For members of the public, let me explain the order of proceedings. The applicant's representatives will go first. They will explain their request and go through all the review criteria for a zoning case, demonstrating how the request is consistent with the Lee County Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Code. Following their presentation, I may have some questions. Their presentation may consist of several witnesses depending on the area of expertise, transportation, environmental, stormwater, etc. At the conclusion of their presentation, we will go to the county planners that prepared the staff report. This testimony may also include more than one person testifying. The staff recommendation in this case is one of approval with conditions. They will go over the case as well, highlighting any points of disagreement or highlighting any specific conditions they're recommending to address concerns they have with compatibility in any regard. Following staff's presentation, I will open up the floor to members of the public. At that time, you are invited to the podium. Please state your name. You may show me where your home or business is in relationship to the project, and then share with us what your concerns are regarding the request. I often find that people are not completely in favor or totally against a request, but they have specific concerns. If you voice them at this hearing, you allow us an opportunity to provide you with further clarification on something you may not understand, or you afford us the opportunity to craft a condition to address that concern. So I certainly invite you to come speak. We ask that members of the public complete a public participation form. The reason for that is so that we can send you a copy of my recommendation once it's complete. We will send that to you via email, or if you prefer not to give your email address, if you give us your mailing address, we will provide it to you that way. I prepare a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. They are the final decision makers in this case. Their hearing typically follows the issuance of my recommendation anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks. I'm not certain if this final hearing will occur before the Christmas break, but let's see how this hearing goes, how long it takes, and how long it'll take me to prepare a recommendation. Usually my recommendations are issued within 1 to 3 weeks following the hearing. All right, I believe that's everything, so I'm going to administer the oath. If you are going to speak or enter any documents into the record, I ask that you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you enter into the record will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Madam Hearing Examiner, for the record, Beth Workman. I'm the principal planner on the case. I have the affidavit of publication for the case, so it's been advertised. As I want to note, this was a reschedule from a date that was interrupted by Hurricane Helene, so we re-advertised, reposted on the site.
Okay, this will be Staff Exhibit 2. Staff Exhibit 1 was the staff report. Let me just mark this. I am ready.
All right. Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For your record, my name is Richard Aiken. I'm an attorney with Henderson Franklin here in Fort Myers. I'm here representing the applicant on case number DCI 2022-00059, which is the Daniels Town Square MPD. Just a couple of brief housekeeping matters before we get started here. The applicant did submit a 48-hour notice, which was also provided to staff. I believe you have a copy, but I have an extra copy here for you if you'd like it. There are a couple of items that were identified in the 48-hour notice We coordinated with staff to clean up a couple of conditions, primarily condition 4 regarding the Three Oaks Parkway extension and the access and timing of access related to development orders. We've spoken to staff, and staff is in agreement with all of the items identified in our 48-hour notice. I can go through those in further depth at this time if you'd like, or we can just sort of address them as we go through if there's any specific questions.
Let's address them as we go through. I'd like to accept that, though, into evidence as applicant Exhibit 1. This is the 48-hour.
That is correct. Also, for your record, I have a couple of other items for you. I have a copy of the applicant's PowerPoint presentation. Actually, I have 2 copies for you. I also have 2 copies of the full-size master concept plan and an 11 by 15, so I'll provide those to you as well.
Okay, thank you. Just give me a few minutes to mark this. So applicant Exhibit 2 will be the PowerPoint. Here's one copy, that's the other one, so this will be mine. Let me have the PowerPoint next. PowerPoint is applicant Exhibit 2. And the master concept plan
That is correct.
will be applicant Exhibit 3, and this is in 2 sizes, right?
Yes.
Is this a new date from the one that was submitted with the staff report,
48-hour notice.
or the 48-hour letter?
It's the same as what was submitted with the 48-hour letter.
All right. All right, I'm ready.
All right. And there is one other housekeeping matter that I would note up front. So actually, there was one other item that we caught yesterday when we were looking through the staff report and preparing for today in the conditions. And we spoke with staff about this. It had to do with condition 1, which is the density. There, we noticed that so some of the density that we request would be derived from bonus density. And the way the condition read, it didn't say that. And we thought, in order to be clear, that there might need to be a change to the condition just to state that there is standard density and then there would be bonus density. We spoke with staff and showed them a red line copy of that, and they were fine with making that clarification. We just thought it needed to be made, sort of anticipated questions that we might get from the hearing examiner on that if that condition did not get clarified. So I have a red line and a clean copy that made that change. We also have the conditions as submitted with the 48-hour letter that you have already this morning.
Okay, and there's going to be a fairly good chance I may be requesting revised conditions at the conclusion of this hearing, because I have some concerns on matters that I didn't see addressed that I'm going to raise during the hearing. So what I'll probably request is I'll leave the record open for you to submit a clean copy of revised conditions and deviations, and then you can incorporate all changes into that document, and I will rely on that for my recommendation.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So this morning I have here with me our project team, which includes Chris Moore with Waypoint Residential. He's the applicant on the project. Dr. Franz is also here. Dr. Franz is one of the current owners of the property. Stacy Hewitt is our AICP planner. She's here, and you'll hear from her here in just a minute. Ted Treesh is our transportation expert. He's here. You'll hear from him this morning. Jackie LaRoque is the PE on the project, and she has a presentation as well to address some of the stormwater management. Finally, Brown Collins is here, and he will address some of the environmental considerations with this project. So on the slide in front of you, you can see the project, which is outlined in yellow here. It's at the southwest corner of Daniels and I-75. There are 4 parcels included in this request. It's approximately 61.26 acres. It's approximately 1 mile from this project to the entrance of the RSW Airport. There is current access to the property from the Daniels 9300 access road, frontage road, which is right along here, along Daniels. There's also access along Indian Pony Lane, which is down here off of Fiddlesticks Boulevard. The future Three Oaks extension, which is currently under construction, bisects the property on the southern end, and you can see the actual alignment for that down here to the south. And as I mentioned, that extension is under construction. If you've driven by down I-75 lately, you may have seen that the construction equipment is out there in that area. Some of the construction equipment has been staged on this particular property in order to allow traffic not to come down Fiddlesticks Boulevard during the construction of the property, and we coordinated, the property owner coordinated with the county to make that happen. The the Three Oaks extension will provide for substantial arterial roadway frontage access once completed. As I indicated, it's under construction, and the county is anticipating that the phase one, which goes approximately right here, will be completed next year, by summer of next year, and open for traffic. The second phase will come out here and bring it out to Daniels, and will begin construction, my understanding is next summer.
So the first phase is going to allow access south to Alico by next year,
That is correct.
but not to Daniels.
Not to Daniels by next
That'll
year.
be later.
That'll be later.
Okay.
And the second phase, like I said, is going to be under construction, we anticipate, next year, and then completed, I believe they're thinking about a year from then is when it should be completed.
So is it feasible this project will be under construction before that's complete?
Yes, so, excuse me, there are a number of conditions as far as access that we have addressed that issue with the timing of Three Oaks Extension. So once the phase one is open, it will allow for access down south for construction traffic as well as for potential traffic once the actual COs are issued for the project. There's also a condition that allows ingress only down Daniels 9300 once the project is actually built, but it does allow for construction traffic on 9300 until phase one is open. And
Right, so you're referring to that frontage road that provides access to the northern area.
correct.
So traffic could be routed out there, through there to Fiddlesticks.
Well, correct, but there's also access here down Indian Pony. So this roadway that comes right through here just to the north of Old Hickory comes out onto Fiddlesticks Boulevard. And so in the access condition, there's the ability for access until the Three Oaks is open along that route as well.
Oh, so there's alternatives.
There are. And that's,
So will the access to Indian Pony Drive continue to exist once Three Oaks is completed? Or will that be,
so the way the condition is crafted, it only contemplates that this would be until construction is completed, although the road will still exist. When I say the road, until the road is completed.
there'll no longer be a direct access?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the zoning request that's before you is to rezone 61.26 acres from commercial plan development to mixed-use plan development to allow for a maximum of 30,000 square feet of non-residential uses, 200 hotel rooms, and up to 1,234 multifamily residential dwelling units, which would include bonus density, as I indicated before. There is also a plan amendment that is proceeding concurrently with this. That plan amendment has been heard by the planning agency, and they unanimously recommended transmittal on August 26th. The BOCC transmitted it unanimously on September 18th. That plan amendment does three things. First, it amends the future land use map to include 61 acres and move it from general interchange into intensive development. It also amends map 1C of the Lee plan to include a portion of the property within the mixed-use overlay. And specifically, portion that would be in the mixed-use overlay is the portion that is to the north of the Three Oaks extension. So only this northern property would be in the mixed-use overlay, not the property down here to the south that abuts Old Hickory. Primary reason for that is, and I'll tell you about in a minute, we've had some interface with the community, and we're trying to keep all the height that might be on the project up here in this area. And so by including only the northern portion in the mixed-use overlay, that was to address some concerns that the residents had as we had some outreach with them.
And you can include the commercial tract in the acreage for calculating density as well in the mixed use?
Yes.
Okay.
The final thing that the plan amendment does is it amends Table 1B just to maintain consistency to reallocate the acreage as a result of the future land use map amendment. A little bit of history on the parcel here. So on April 6th of 2009, the property was rezoned to commercial plan development, and that allowed 390,000 square feet of office and retail uses, as well as 120 unit hotel and up to 75 feet in height. There were some traffic conditions as part of that zoning approval, and there was also an eagle's nest on site at the time. Currently, the property has been divided by the right-of-way for Three Oaks Parkway extension, as you've seen on the slides that we've already shown you. And that extension comes all the way from the drainage canal further to the south. There's ongoing agricultural uses on site, and the eagle's nest that was on site has now been vacated, and Ron Collins can talk further about that if you have any questions. As far as the future, we're looking at this as infill mixed-use development, obviously as multifamily units as we're requesting, as well as a commercial center. The current request would result in a reduction in overall trips compared to the existing zoning, and that's primarily as a result of the reduced trips associated with multifamily compared to a commercial use. And Ted Treesh will talk about that further in his presentation. And you've asked about the access a little bit already. We'll talk about that further, but access is ingress only on Daniels 9300. That's planned so that once the project is built, traffic leaving the development will not go out through the Daniels 9300 access because of the concerns that Lee County DOT had with how that intersection there functions between the Daniels 9300 and Daniels Parkway red light right there.
So that's an ingress only, which is strange because that means people would have to be coming from the south to access that northernmost piece.
Well, so Daniels 9300 is, I want to make sure I understand your question. So what we proposed as part of this is that you could ingress, so you could come down Daniels and turn in here and come through this, moving to the south from the north. But you'll also have access down Three Oaks Parkway.
Right, but can you make a left off of Fiddlesticks onto that 9300? I didn't think you could.
So you can now. There was a period of time where it was not allowed to make a left, but now they've changed it and you can. But there's a red light right here that provides access to Daniels 9300, right there where the McDonald's is, and there's a pit stop as well. So you can turn directly off of Daniels Parkway onto Daniels 9300.
You're right. And that'll continue to operate as an ingress-only access following the completion of the Three Oaks extension.
Correct. So I also want to just briefly mention some of the community outreach that we've done leading up to this project. Beginning in February of 23, the project has been regularly presented to the representatives of Old Hickory, Fiddlesticks, and Legends, and there are some representatives of those communities here this morning. The applicants have met several times with Old Hickory HOA Board. As part of these meetings, the applicants reduced and revised the initial zoning request to accommodate concerns regarding height, intensity, and the locations of uses. And specifically, the original request was for 66 acres, so there was one parcel that was taken out. And it also included at that time a maximum of 500,000 square feet of non-residential uses, 300 hotel units, and a little over 1,400 dwelling units. So we've made some changes to that in order to address some of the concerns that the residents had. We've also worked with Old Hickory and their civil engineer over drainage and design concerns. We've made some changes to the drainage in order to address those concerns. So with that, unless you have any other questions of me, I'll turn it over to Stacy Hewitt.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Stacy Ellis Hewitt with Atwell. I've previously been accepted as an expert witness in land use zoning matters in this forum, and I request to be accepted as such today.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. This is the existing future land use for the site and the concurrent amendment. As mentioned, the site's in the general interchange and wetlands future land use category currently, as is the surrounding developments. And to the south, we also have outlying suburban where Old Hickory is. As discussed, the north portion above Three Oaks Parkway is proposed for the intensive development category as well as the mixed use overlay, and south of Three Oaks is proposed for intensive development. This slide demonstrates similar mixed-use overlays as the subject property, just showing that it has similar quadrants of I-75 at State Road 80, as well as down at Alico have the mixed-use overlay. as well as intersections along major arterials such as Daniels Parkway and 6 Mile Cypress, as well as US 41. And the site's located at this intersection. This is the current zoning and the proposed zoning map. As discussed there, the current zoning is CPD. To the west, there is agricultural AG2 zoning, as well as commercial plan development and tourist commercial zoning and general commercial up at the north. To the north, across Daniels Parkway are commercial plan developments, and to the east across I-75 are mixed-use plan developments, and to the south is the Old Hickory residential plan development and a vacant commercial plan development along I-75. Again, the proposed zoning is for mixed-use plan development. The surrounding land uses to the west, there is fast food, retail, and storage uses, and as well as some vacant land that is going to be part of the future Three Oaks extension. To the east, there's I-75, and then hotels, retail, and commercial, and some auto sales, as well as some public services down at in this location. To the north is the Daniels 9300 frontage road, Daniels Parkway, and then retail and hotel uses across Daniels Parkway to the north. To the south is Indian Pony Drive and Old Hickory Golf and Country Club and undeveloped land in the commercial plan development. Indian Pony Drive is a privately maintained roadway, and Daniels 9300 is a county maintained local roadway as well. The Three Oaks Parkway extension is a major regional arterial and an I-75 interchange reliever that bisects the property as previously discussed. It's a critical 4-lane divided segment. It'll have 5-foot bike lanes from Fiddlesticks Canal to Daniels Parkway, and it is currently under construction for phase 1. All requisite right-of-way was conveyed by the property owner. Phase 1 to the western property boundary is expected to be complete in late summer of 2025, and it'll provide access south to Alico Road and then also to Estero and Bonita Springs. There are proposed 8-foot sidewalks on the west and 6-foot sidewalks on the east of the proposed road, and then there's also phase 2 when it's under construction for connection to Daniels. It's expected to begin in spring of 2025 or earlier, and it'll have 2 6-foot sidewalks as well as the 5-foot bike lanes as well. The focal point of the subject property is pivoting from the Daniels down to the Three Oaks Parkway, and the exit away from the exit of I-75, and the developable focal point will be along the Three Oaks Parkway that's under construction. The staff report does recommend approval. The applicant is in agreement with the staff report recommendation for approval and the conditions and deviations as revised by the applicant's 48-hour notice. I would like to request to incorporate the staff report and the applicant 40-hour notice with attachments into my testimony today. There is adequate available public infrastructure in the area that I'd like to go through as outlined in the staff report. Lee County Utilities serves the site and has capacity for water and sewer. Lee Tran has a bus stop within 1/4 mile served by bus stop number 11554 via Route 50 on Daniels Parkway.
Where is that in relationship to the master concept plan, because it's not designated?
I was just going to go back to the aerial on that. Let's see, this is kind of a big one. The bus stop is about in this location here along Daniels, and Route 50 provides service from the Southwest Florida Airport to the South Fort Myers transfer station, and also park and ride, and also to the beach park and ride. South Trail Fire Station 62 is approximately 1.2 miles west on Daniels Parkway, and the Lee County Sheriff's South District primary substation is within 3.5 miles, as well as the EMS substation that's on 6 Mile Cypress Parkway. Lee County Solid Waste and Lee County Schools have also issued letters of availability, and the roadways serving the project are programmed for improvements as mentioned, Three Oaks Parkway extension, and also Daniels Parkway is proposed to be widened to 8 lanes, and there's also proposed intersection improvements at Fiddlesticks and Palomino, and a signalization and added turn lane capacity at the Appaloosa Lane.
What are
in
the
Powers
timings of
Court.
those improvement?
I believe Ted can go into more detail on that during his presentation, but my understanding is they're following the Three Oaks extension, and it'll be timed along with the I-75, but I'll let Ted get into more details on that. As there's also proposed I-75 interchange efficiency and expansion improvements coming along as well. There's several transportation improvements happening at this time. This is a map demonstrating the public facilities and their location. As you can see, the listed referenced facilities there's several within vicinity of the site, as well as several schools within the 3-mile radius. Regarding the density, the request is for 1,234 dwelling units, requested out of the maximum 1,664 dwelling units that could be requested for the site. The standard density is 777 dwelling units, which is captured by the upland acreage as well as the preserved wetland acreage for the site, and the bonus density, which 444 dwelling units can be any type to be determined at the time of development order application. That would be transfer development units, either wetland, Southeast Lee County, Greater Pine Island, or there could also be the option for affordable housing, cash contribution, or on-site, that option to be determined during the development order process. Additional Greater Pine Island TDU bonus density of 13 dwelling units out of the maximum 444 that could be requested will be required for any dwelling units over the 1,221 dwelling units.
Okay, wait, explain this to me.
There is allowed 8, there's the 14, there's 8 bonus density units allowed, and then anything over that in the intensive development, you can also 8 more if they're Greater Pine Island transfer development units. So the first 8 bonus density units that are allowed aren't specified what they must be, but if you exceed the 8 over the standard, then anything over that must be Greater Pine Island.
So you're exceeding the standard bonus by 5, and you're grabbing those 5 from Greater Pine Island?
It's 13 dwelling units is the number that's got, that 13 total have to be Greater Pine Island. The others may be, the other bonus densities may be, but 13, if you go over the 1,221 dwelling units, they would be required to be Greater Pine Island.
So just the number 13 dwelling units?
Yes.
Or 13 per acre?
Just the number 13.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to highlight that the subject property is identified as a universal transfer development unit receiving area that further demonstrates the appropriateness for the proposed density and alternate housing types to the several single-family units in the area. The master concept plan demonstrates a maximum of 30,000 square feet of non-residential uses and 200 hotel rooms located north of Three Oaks Parkway, away from Old Hickory. There's 1,234 multifamily units, again requested where 1,664 is the maximum available under the land use category proposed. Building heights are limited to 35 feet abutting Old Hickory, and limited to residential uses only south of Three Oaks. And just wanted to point out that the current commercial plan development allows development in that area up to 75 feet. And we are reducing that to 35. Height greater than 60 feet is reserved for the I-75 Daniels Corner and north of the Three Oaks extension. The existing commercial plan development allowed the maximum that's allowed in general interchange, future land use category of 75 feet. Intensive development allows up to 135 feet, and we're requesting 90 feet and feel that that's appropriate in the corner all the way up towards the I-75 and Daniels corner. We also have sensitive location of the lake placement for enhanced compatibility and buffers in accordance with the land development code, but they have been enhanced as requested by staff along the north side of Three Oaks Parkway, I-75's frontage, Daniels Parkway's frontage, as well as Indian Paint Lane. The mixed-use overlay only requires 5-foot buffers with 5 trees per 100 linear feet, and the applicant has agreed with staff to provide the type D 15-foot right-of-way buffers, which are 5 trees per 100 linear feet and a double hedgerow. The project is a cohesive mixed-use development, adding to the variety of housing types and employment and goods and services for the future residents and the general public. This is a highlighted version of the master concept plan with north is to your left. Again, we have, as discussed earlier, the Daniels 9300 after Three Oaks Parkway is open is limited to ingress only, and the development is focalized at the Three Oaks Parkway, and this is proposed for a future signalized intersection on Three Oaks at the project entrance. The enhanced buffers that we just discussed will be along I-75, Daniels Parkway, as well as Indian Paint Lane and Three Oaks Parkway. There's also the portion that is outside of the mixed-use overlay also has the 15-foot type D buffers along both right-of-ways. Again, the residential building is limited to 35 feet abutting Old Hickory, where it could be 75 feet developed today. Phase 1 of the development is proposed for this area here of multifamily with a maximum height of 45 feet. As you get closer to Three Oaks Parkway along the frontage, we have a maximum height of 60 feet. And then we have the commercial parcel here, as well as the multifamily parcel in this location. And the maximum height of 90 feet has been limited and pushed up to the interstate in Daniels Corner. The temporary access that was discussed is will be down to Indian Pony Drive to access Fiddlesticks, and that is proposed as a temporary connection while phase 2 of Three Oaks Parkway is being under construction. There is an optional additional access point on Indian Paint Lane, but that is an optional, it's not required, but should the developer desire, there's a proposed additional connection to Three Oaks Parkway in that location. There are 5 deviations included with the request. Deviations 1 through 4 are to minimize wildlife hazards within the 10,000-foot hazardous wildlife zone for the airport. And there's criteria for airport operations, and also in accordance with the FAA's Advisory Circular 150/5200-33C. These deviations are from Land Development Code Section 10-329-D4, which requires the lake bank slopes to be 6:1 to allow 4:1 slopes. Deviation 2 is from Land Development Code Section 10-418-2A, which requires planted littoral shelf along the shoreline length to be 25% of the shoreline and of the control elevation to eliminate this requirement. Deviation 3 is from Land Development Code Section 10-418-2C to omit the required 20-foot wide planted littoral shelf. And deviation 4 is from Land Development Code Section 10-418-2D3, which allows native wetland trees to be substituted for up to 25% of the number of herbaceous plants required, to allow for native wetland trees to be substituted for 100% of the required herbaceous plants. This is to not attract wildlife, to prevent bird strikes for airplanes. It's a safety matter that has been addressed by the Port Authority, and staff does recommend approval with associated condition 9 to allow for the wetland trees instead of the herbaceous materials. And this is also consistent and required by policy 47.2.5 of the LEAP plan. Deviation 5 is from Land Development Code section 10-291-3 that requires residential development of more than 5 acres to provide more than one means of ingress or egress for the development, to allow one means of egress for parcel 6 after the temporary access to the south is removed. And this parcel is barely over that 5-acre minimum, and we have coordinated with South Trail Fire, and both the fire department and staff do recommend approval of that deviation. All of the deviations enhance the achievements of the objectives of the planned development and protect the public health, safety, and welfare. The conditions proposed for the site, as discussed earlier, we'll go through some of the minor changes at the end of the presentations, but of course it's required to be consistent with the master concept plan as well as the conditions of approval. One item that we did add was the just to include the EMS fire or sheriff station use that was brought up in the staff report. We have added that use. I did also want to highlight that the site development regulations and the mixed use overlay, really the only regulations in the mixed use overlay for site development regulations are a minimum lot width of 25 feet and a water body setback. So there's really open development regulations there, and the applicant has agreed to still provide exceeding those requirements. The mixed use overlay would also allow the 135 feet, and the applicant has reduced providing setbacks and maximum lot coverage, which isn't required in the mixed use overlay, setbacks and limitations on height throughout the site that exceed what could be requested in the mixed use overlay. There's also condition for the agricultural use to continue on the site, the conditions regarding the Three Oaks Parkway extension that we discussed, and limitations on density for just for the wetland and state permits to match at the time of development order. The parcels will provide open space that's in the mixed use overlay are allowed to provide 20% open space, and to the south of Three Oaks outside of the mixed use overlay will be required to provide the 40% open space. There is proposed water quality monitoring conditions that the applicant has agreed to, and there's also the condition that requires the wetland trees that we discussed, and a transportation condition 11 also discusses the agreement that was submitted as part of the 48-hour letter for the signalization, and the applicant is in agreement with those conditions as amended by the 48-hour notice. This is a line of sight study that was done as part of the development, demonstrating views from backyards within the Old Hickory development. This line of sight demonstrates from a backyard the existing vegetation on the golf course that's very mature, as well as the maintenance facility is within the view as well. And then there's proposed type D buffer along the roadway on Indian Pony, as well as the lake view. Then there's also type D buffers on both sides of the Three Oaks Parkway. And as you can see, the line of sight is sufficiently blocked by the existing vegetation. The second line of sight is line of sight B, demonstrates the view to the proposed maximum 35 feet multifamily, which again, the existing vegetation demonstrates that the views will be significantly blocked.
So this bottom one is the lower parcel,
Yes, this is, the bottom one is the line of sight
To what exactly?
viewing, it's viewing north to the proposed multifamily that's
Okay.
35 feet. It's
So go back, let me see what they say.
Oops. There's approximately 600 feet from the homes to the proposed building.
So this is the building on the north side of,
This is on the south side of Three Oaks.
the south side of 30.
Yes, it's the maximum 35-foot, the one that's closest.
So that rendition is of a 35-foot high building? Looks
Yeah.
like it's a 4-story building. 3-story building?
It's 3 stories.
Can you get 3 stories in 35 feet? That's
Potentially,
confusing
it's,
for me.
it's understood. The height maximum is 35 feet regardless of we did not include a maximum height on the stories. But the thought on that is the first height 15 feet and then 10 feet for each additional height, just in general planning language, and that's why it's demonstrated in that.
Okay, thank you. And let me see the other line of sight.
This is the north line of sight.
And what am I
Okay.
looking at there? A hotel or something that is 60 feet in height?
Yes, that is the proposed hotel in this location, and again, it's got approximately 1,300-foot view from the residences, and there's...
Where is this lake that you're pointing to? Is it on the south side of Three Oaks? In that,
Yes, it's
line of
right in
sight.
this location. Line of sight A is going from the backyards, then there is this proposed lake in this location, and then this is the parcel that could potentially have the hotel, either commercial of 35 feet or a hotel of 60 feet.
please flip back to the, this is line of sight
A, yes. This is the golf maintenance facility. It's located in this
Right, I
location.
see that.
And then there is the project boundary, or this is the boundary of the golf course. Then there's Indian Pony Road, a type D buffer proposed along Indian Pony, the lake, and then the type D buffer on Three Oaks Parkway, which is a 100-foot right-of-way, and then another type D buffer on the other side, and then the commercial building.
All right, thank you. I was just thrown by the fact that the buildings look the same, yet the one on the bottom is only supposed to be 35. But I understand now.
Thank you. And at this time, I'll introduce Ted Treesh.
Good morning. Ted Shreesh, TR Transportation Consultants. We prepared the traffic study for this application, and we were also involved in the previous zoning application. And this first slide also just compares the trip generation from the current uses that are permitted on the project based on the zoning that's currently approved. The top table is the uses that are currently approved based on the existing zoning resolution Z08043. And the bottom table is the trip generation that's in the traffic study that's currently before you this morning, with basically the replacement of the retail use with the multifamily as the predominant use. The trip generation characteristics of the project are significantly altered. The trip generation in the morning increases a little bit just because a retail use doesn't typically generate very many trips in the morning peak hour. It's a predominantly midday and evening, afternoon, and Saturday trip generation use, whereas the residential has a little higher AM peak hour trip generation just because residents leave for work in the morning. But in the afternoon, you'll see the significant reduction in the PM peak hour, as well as a daily trip generation reduction, is a significant reduction in the overall project with the change in uses in this application. This is just simply a summary of the level service analysis. The Daniels Parkway still has level service issues. It's still designated as a constrained facility by the county in the Lee plan. But as Stacy said, and I'll go over a little bit more, there are some improvements that are being proposed by Lee County as well as FDOT in the immediate area that are going to help the situation in this immediate area. In terms of improvements, that's one of the reasons why this project has kind of been lingering, but is now moving forward with this change in use. And also some conditions that we've been working through with DOT. If you recall, were you the hearing examiner with the first zoning case when we went through? But there was a lot of issues with that case in terms of access with Daniels 9300, just because of the tight geometry and working with the county up on Daniels Parkway, and because at that time the Three Oaks Parkway extension was still a number of years off, but now, as you're aware, that project is now under construction, so that's solving a lot of problems with access to this property. And again, we've had a lot of meetings with Lee County DOT, and that was one of the reasons why the access to this property is now an ingress only from the north side. That Lee County did not want traffic coming out from this project to the north, further complicating some congestion that still occurs at that tight intersection on Daniels Parkway right there close to I-75. So we've agreed to that condition that traffic at Daniels 9300 in the ultimate build-out will only be allowed to enter from the north to this project. So this is just a snippet from the county's website, the county DOT's website. This is phase 2 of the Three Oaks Parkway construction. This shows, this is our entrance off of Three Oaks Parkway. We anticipate that the intersection being designed as a future traffic signal, that if a signal goes in, that the developer will be responsible for a future signal construction at that point, but there'll be a full median opening that's being constructed by the county. Three Oaks Parkway is being built right now to this point right here. This is the property, this cleared property is the site, and it's being constructed to the western boundary as part of phase 1. So that will be open to traffic well before any development is completed on this site. So once units are built, residents will be able to go to the south and access Alico Road to be able to get into and out of this project. And then we've also agreed that we'll be able to access this Daniels 9300, and construction traffic will be able to get in and out on a temporary basis to 9300. And then we've also been able to work with the county to be able to utilize Indian Pony on the temporary basis. Again, as Stacy indicated, that will not be a permanent access. Once this is open, that access to that roadway will go away. There will not be permanent access to this roadway to get to Fiddlesticks. But this is the ultimate plan for Three Oaks Parkway. There'll be a median constructed along Three Oaks, so that's why this is the Publix. To access the Publix, this connection to the old Fiddlesticks will come down. There's a roundabout here, and then there'll be a traffic signal at this location. So that's one of the reasons why the county is putting a traffic signal over at this location on Daniels at the Appaloosa Powers Court intersection to give better access to this southwest corner of the Daniels Parkway Three Oaks intersection. As Stacy also indicated, Daniels Parkway is being widened to 8 lanes, So it's creating more capacity on this segment of Daniels Parkway. And then there's some improvements on the north side of Daniels Parkway. This is the Palomino Road north of Daniels. Phase 2 was also delayed by Lee County a little bit to go in conjunction with some improvements that FDOT is providing to the interchange of I-75. They just had their public information meeting a few months ago. This is their work program that's been adopted. This shows the funding that's been adopted by FDOT. And you can see on the left side of the screen, in 2025, they have funding of $37 million for the construction improvements to the I-75 interchange. So that project is now moving forward.
What will that entail?
That's on my next slide. This is a design build project with I-75. And this is the concept plan that they're now moving forward with. This is pretty much the exact same interchange that they're building right now at Colonial and I-75.
Oh, boy.
A diverging diamond interchange. This is the new interchange concept that FDOT is moving forward with on most interchanges up and down the interstate corridors. So this is the concept that they're moving forward with. It takes away the loop ramp in the southeast corner, and it creates a diverging diamond interchange between the signal. The signal will remain at Danport, and the access to the rest area will remain on the east side. And this concept is moving forward to begin construction next year. So Lee County will begin construction on the Daniels extension to the west in conjunction with this project, so it'll all be under construction at the same time. And if all goes well with construction projects and storms, they're hoping that this will all be wrapped up by 2027 through the interchange and through the Appaloosa interchange. That's the intersection of Appaloosa. That's the plan right now. I'm talking with Lee County DOT in terms of the project, and timing-wise for our project, we're hoping that that'll work out well through the development and permitting process. With the zoning approval, hopefully early this year or late this year, early this 2025 with construction, and with the conditions we have worked out with staff, we're hoping that as the road projects work out, that as development starts to reach completion, all the road projects will start opening up, and this project will probably start reaching completion right about that 2027 timeframe when these road projects are also reaching their completion. So we're hoping that timing works out well. So it's been a long time coming with this 3 Oaks Parkway extension. I know Dr. France has been waiting and working with the county for a long time, and he's been working with the county well. They're actually using this property as a construction phasing area for the 3 Oaks project with Lee County DOT. So again, phase 1 is under construction. Phase 2 is coming, starting early next year. So this project is consistent. The zoning is consistent with the goals and objectives of the Lee Plan and the Land Development Code, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot to ask at the beginning just to be recognized as an expert in transportation planning.
Yes, you've been accepted.
All right, thank you.
Before.
Good morning, Jackie LaRock, Atwell. I'm a senior director for our engineering group. I've been accepted as an expert before. I'd like to be again today.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about stormwater today. So on this project, we do have our ERP already approved. So we've gone through the design calculations with the Water Management District, and we've already ran the math. Some of the highlights are, the issuance of our ERP ensures that we won't have adverse impacts upstream or downstream. We contain, we treat, we attenuate all of our stormwater on site, and then we control, release the water off site. And then this slide shows the interconnection of the ponds. Everything is interconnected together with one main discharge point off site, which does go through Old Hickory. It is a very minimal discharge rate, and it is previously approved through their ERP. We have easement rights through their golf course. The existing structure is located in the golf maintenance facility, so we connect right to that. Our stormwater goes through it. We've worked with Old Hickory on the stormwater design, as previously mentioned, and they are here today to discuss if there's questions on their end also. So with that, the stormwater on this one is not relatively complicated, and we are fortunate that we do have our ERP in hand.
I have a question. Is this property in the 6 Mile Cypress watershed basin? Because when I was looking at the lead plan, it looked like it was, and I think there's enhanced requirements in terms of water treatment and attenuation, et cetera, that must be complied with under our regulations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so this project, I don't have the answer on the basin right now, but we'll get that for you. We are in an impaired water body, so we do provide 50% extra treatment and attenuation. So instead of the normal 100% that's standard, this project is providing 150% extra water quality.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brown Collins. Brown like the color is my first name. I will give you a business card with my firm name, which is Sun Ecological Analyst, Inc., with a federal trademark. This is a relatively straightforward site environmentally. As they mentioned, pardon me, technology is not my thing. But the primary issues in this sort of site and on this site are wetlands and listed species. Thanks. If you check the aerial photograph here, the Corps identified 2 wetlands on the site when they did their no permit required determination. The largest of these is the cypress head that's being preserved and enhanced as part of the county process. All the others are so small that preservation, functionally, they wouldn't exist because it would be all edge. There wouldn't be any wetlands. So ecologically, it's a lot of effort for no benefit. The area on this site where we can get benefit is being done now. And it's neat because it's centrally located in this development that's relatively intensive. People can't help but drive by it, which, as Ted and the engineers did the traffic planning, I think was a good thing. There was a historic eagle nest on the site for a couple of decades. The nest was destroyed 4 times by storms, 03, 10, 16, and 19. And in 19, they didn't rebuild. And based on a reconnaissance of the area, they relocated just south of the Fiddlesticks Canal, where Oriole Road goes east. And I checked last week, they're still there. Okay. The reason they left is eagles are large, I won't use the word unwieldy, but they're not very maneuverable birds. So when they leave a perch or a nest, they're gonna fall 3 or 4 feet because before the aerodynamics kick in, and the exotics got to the point where they couldn't exit the nest. And that's why they relocated. We couldn't do the exotics in the area around the nest per federal guidance. We got a federal take permit for the nest, but one of the conditions was that we couldn't have any mechanical activity at all. And the exotics were so huge that doing it with an axe would have just aggravated the birds.
But now the nest is abandoned.
And
So
yes, that's.
Wetland can be restored, exotics removed.
Well, the nest wasn't in the wetlands.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, it was in the uplands.
All right.
It was an old dead slash pine that had beetles, and I had the county forester from the Forest Service look at it in, I think, 19 or 20, just to build a record that it was not the healthiest of trees in case it blew over.
Okay.
Okay. The wetland impacts are being mitigated with the Water Management District by the purchase of mitigation credits. I think that's already been done. So environmentally, this wasn't the most exciting site to begin with, but what it had has been respected, I think.
Thank you.
You bet. May I approach and give her a business card?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
You bet.
Brown, do you have the?
Oh, here it is. Thank you. Got it. Thank you. Again, Stacy Ellis Hewitt for the record. The request is consistent with the Lee County Comprehensive Plan, Policy 1.1.2, the intensive development. Future land use category, it is located along major arterial roads. It's densest development patterns of Lee County where public services and urban infrastructure is available. The site highest and best use is for the mixed-use development proposed of high-density residential and commercial, consistent with this future land use category. And this is the right location for well-planned, higher density intensity development. It's also consistent with Objective 2.1 and 2.2, Policy 2.2.1, Development Timing and Location. It is infill, compact, and contiguous development in a future urban area and the mixed-use overlay, and adequate public facilities exist, and it is compatible with the surrounding land uses. It's consistent with policies 5.1.5, 5.1.6, and 5.1.7 regarding residential. The building height and orientation adjustments as working with the neighboring communities, providing buffering above code, and providing the adequate open space for the site. It's consistent with standards 4.1.1 and 4.1.2 for water and sewer. The letter of availability submitted demonstrates available capacity for the project. It also continues to be consistent with Goal 6, Policies 6.1.1, 6.1.2, 6.1.3, 6.1.4, and 6.1.5 regarding commercial land uses. The existing zoning was found consistent, and the proposed plan does remain consistent with those policies. It's also consistent with Objective 11.2, Policies 11.2.2, 11.2.5, 11.2.6, and 11.2.7 of the mixed-use overlay. Interconnectivity is provided internally and externally, and it is urban infill development, providing a variety of uses and includes bonus density and also includes the commercial density within our commercial area within the density. It's consistent with objectives 60.4 and 125.1. Policies 125.1.2 and 125.1.1 on stormwater management design and water quality. Again, the ERP has been issued for the site, and we have agreed to water quality monitoring required per condition 8. It's consistent with objective 135.1, policy 135.1.9 in the housing element, as the request does add to the variety of housing and density and types in the area. It's also consistent with goal 158 in the economic development. It is mixed-use infill development, assisting with diversified and stable economy by providing employment opportunities in the commercial area. The request is consistent with Land Development Code Section 2-146B regarding the bonus density minimum requirements. The additional traffic is not required to travel through areas with lower densities before reaching the nearest collector or arterial, as it provides direct access onto Three Oaks, which is an arterial road. Its existing and committed public facilities are adequate to service the site, and as demonstrated in the staff report and the 48-hour notice. The site's not located within the coastal high hazard area, so the next qualification is not required and not applicable, and the resulting development will be compatible with existing and planned surrounding land uses, as it provides compatible infill development. The request is also consistent with Land Development Code Section 34-145 D4A1 regarding the findings and review criteria for the rezoning request. As outlined in the staff report and the slides, it does comply with the Lee plan. It does meet the code and other county regulations, or does qualify for the 5 requested deviations. It is compatible with the existing and planned uses in the surrounding area, and access is sufficient to support the proposed development intensity. The expected impacts on transportation facilities are addressed by the existing county regulations and the proposed condition of approval that was included in that regard. The request again does result in a reduction in the overall trips compared to the existing approved intensities on the site. As outlined, it will not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive areas or natural resources, and it's also served by urban services and is in a future urban area, and all necessary urban infrastructure is in place or programmed to be completed for the site. It's also consistent with Land Development Code Section 34-145 D4A2, the findings and review criteria for planned developments. Again, this is the proposed mix of uses is appropriate at this location. It's proposed as a resilient mixed-use development, as urban infill, and also an employment center. And the recommended conditions do provide sufficient safeguards to the public interest and are reasonably related to the proposed development. And each of the requested deviations do enhance the achievements of the objectives of the planned development and protect the public health, safety, and welfare. That concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be...
Thank you. Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. I have one question that I noted going through the staff report in preparation for today's hearing. The analysis from the school district of Lee County predicts 40-plus students to be generated by this project. And I'm looking at your site plan, and I'm noting that Three Oaks Parkway is going to be a heavily traveled arterial roadway functioning as a parallel reliever to I-75, and your main spine road is going to carry the bulk of traffic from over 1,200 units in addition to whatever is developed on this commercial parcel. So my question is, what provision is being made on this site plan for a safe area for these 40-plus students to access a school bus stop? There are Lee Plan policies that note that that has to be taken into account and provided for. I'm not comfortable just shoving this off to the development order stage. I'd like to see some recognition on this site plan that there's going to be an acknowledgement that there's going to be an area for safe onboarding and disembarking from a school bus. And you can look at that, and we're going to leave the record open anyway for a clean set of conditions. And if that is the conclusion of your presentation, I'd like to take a 10 to 15-minute break for the court reporter, and then we'll resume with applicant's presentation.
All right.
Staff's presentation.
Yeah, yes, Madam Hearing Examiner, it is. I did want to answer your question about being within the 6-mile Cypress watershed, and we are indeed within that, and that's the reason why Condition 8 regarding water quality monitoring is contained within the conditions recommended by staff in order to meet the requirements of the LEED plan in that regard. Just
Thank
wanted to
you.
clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, well, why don't we break until 10:30? We'll resume with Ms. Workman's presentation and any other members of staff that will be speaking in connection with this application. At the conclusion of her presentation, I will accept public input. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Beth Workman. I am a principal planner in the zoning section. I've been accepted as an expert in the LEED plan as well as the land development code, and I wish to be accepted today as well.
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a little bit of housekeeping. I have some new case maps that show the correct boundary because there was an incorrect boundary attached to the staff memo. And I'm going to pass that out. Here we go. It's just some case maps. And then the other,
And these are to replace maps in the staff report?
yeah, the case maps in the staff report. The staff report, as per the 48-hour letter from the applicant, cited that there was an additional piece of property involved with this rezoning, but the legal and the new case maps have the outline correct because there was a small AG2 piece that was included. So there's actually 4 parcels, and I think in the staff report I was mentioning 5 parcels. So that corrects and it falls in line with the 48-hour letter as well. And then the next handout I have is the PowerPoint presentation.
All right, corrective maps are Staff Exhibit 3, PowerPoint, Staff Exhibit 4. Thank you. You can follow along with it, but then give it back and I'll make you a copy.
I don't need to follow.
No, okay. Ready.
So the case before you today is DCI 2022-00059. Before we get started, I just want to mention that I have 2 staff members. One is watching from afar. That's Jillian Scholler. She's with our Lee County DOT. She's just watching. She'll be able to answer any questions about the timing of 3 Oaks Parkway extension or any of the off-site improvements that are happening that will eventually support this project if it is deemed approvable. And then I have Joe Saraceno, who provided a staff memorandum. He's a planner in our planning section. His staff memorandum is attachment or Exhibit I with the staff report. And Joe analyzed the density because it is kind of complex on this project with the mixed use overlay as well as the bonus density and then the Greater Pine Island transfer density unit. So there's a slide in here for him, and he has not been accepted as an expert in this forum before, so we do have his resume for you when he presents as well as to be accepted in this forum for the LEED plan.
All right.
So with that, the project, as Ms. Hewitt explained, is at the southwest corner of I-75 in Daniels. I just want to mention, I'm not going to belabor all of these because the applicant did a really good job going through the lay of the land on this. I'm going to go through my slides, but I'm going to highlight some of the things just to reiterate and enter my findings in this from the staff report. Staff has been working on this project since 2022. The master concept plan has changed quite a bit because we had everything localized up here as high-intensity commercial, and with the off-site improvements to the frontage road, and then things kind of fell apart off-site, so then Three Oaks Parkway, we had to revert to inside out, kind of focusing on the frontage being Three Oaks Parkway extension. So you'll see more of the hotel use and things focal pointed towards this Three Oaks Parkway extension rather than having the commercial intensity up on the top adjacent to Daniels. So with that, it's a rezoning to 61.26 acres from commercial plan development to mixed use plan development. It's for 30,000 square feet of commercial development to include a 200-room hotel. The maximum density is 1,234 residential units, and staff is recommending approval with the conditions. So property history, this project has an approved zoning resolution, Z08043. This is the master concept plan that you see on the screen. You can see the bald eagle nest protection measures, the 330, and I believe at that time it was the 1500, and then the preservation in the lake areas surrounding this bald eagle nest. The project in total was 65.50 acres because the acquiring of the Three Oaks extension had not occurred yet, though the master concept plan does show that. The existing approval today that could be built is 50,000 square feet of medical office, 90,000 square feet of general office, 250,000 square feet of retail commercial, 120 room hotel, and then the maximum height across the development is 75 feet. Mr. Brown Collins went over the active southern bald eagle nest that was located at the time in this location. That has been deemed abandoned. The letter was attached to the staff report, and ETAC provided a letter of abandonment as well. And that's all attached to the county's staff report. So there has been a CPA, two CPAs. One was a map amendment and one was a text amendment. So the map amendment was to change the future land use category to intensive development. The other map amendment was to add the property into the mixed use overlay. And what was added was just the northern piece to the mixed use overlay, as you see on this illustration here. And then the text amendment was just to update the 2045 population allocation table in the Lee plan. So this is the request, this is the master concept plan, and you can see the residential to the north, there's Daniels, I-75, and then the hotel is the focal point again, Three Oaks Parkway extension with the hotel or commercial use surrounded by varying heights of residential. This is the review criteria that Ms. Hewitt went over. I just put this in the presentation because this is what staff reviews to during the sufficiency process as well as the hearing examiner. So Lee Plan, Land Development Code, and then looking at the surrounding uses and the traffic impacts as well as environmental. Future land use category, this has gone, the CPA has gone to the board for transmittal in September. And the intensive development is what the new future land use category will be on the site. It is in general interchange. It has been transmitted to intensive development, which Lee Plan Policy 1.1.2 requires that you have access to major arterial roads, you have appropriate public services to support the project for the high intensity and the density, and that you create connectivity with adjacent neighborhoods to support the mix of uses in the area as well as on the site. There are some wetlands on the site, as Mr. Brown Collins had talked about. Lee Plan Policy 1.5.1 states that the county, the uses within wetlands is low density recreational uses. Wetlands policy, Lee Plan Policy 124.1.1 as well as 124.1.2 states that county staff is to protect state wetlands As Ms. LaRoque has indicated, there is a South Florida Water Management District ERP on this property that shows the impacts to wetlands and the mitigation measures that are going to take place once the mitigation has been paid for off-site. There is a wetland that's being preserved as part of the county requirement for indigenous. It's cypress wetland, and that is illustrated on the master concept plan. So the lead plan policy 124.1.2 is being met. These are the lead plan policies that are in place for residential, and the important parts are that there's no physical constraints that would endanger the proposed residential community. There isn't. This isn't in the coastal high hazard. The wetlands are being mitigated. The proximity to schools, parks, employment, and shopping centers. This isn't an intense part of Lee County. It's right on a major arterial road. There is an arterial road that is being built as we speak in phase 1 of the Three Oaks Parkway extension. The protection of existing and future residents, I can't say enough about Lee Plan Policy 5.1.5. The Old Hickory residents have been involved in this process since the comprehensive plan amendment and the zoning was submitted. We have, staff has had open dialogue with the residents as well as communication through email. Any questions along the way? The applicant has met with them several times. There has been changes to the master concept plan to be sensitive to the surrounding land uses. So Lee Plan Policy 5.1.5 exclamation point has been met. The maintain regulations for required open space buffering and landscaping. As Ms. Hewitt explained, the open space is being met. The mixed use overlay is on the northern piece, which allows for a reduction in open space. So this is a large development. It's required 20% open space. The small piece to the south of Three Oaks Parkway extension is not in the mixed use overlay as part of the CPA process. And so that piece must meet the large development for the residential at 40%. So there's a split zoning or split open space calculation for each segment, with Three Oaks Parkway extension bifurcating the site. The buffering, as mentioned with the conditions of approval, take into consideration the mixed-use overlay allows for right-of-way buffers at 5 feet. But the southern piece is not in the mixed-use overlay, so the right-of-way buffer must be 15 feet. So in order to have a cohesive development, there is a condition recommended by staff in the zoning to provide 15-foot wide buffers adjacent to all external right-of-ways with a consistent planting theme that will be established through the development order process to make sure every piece of the puzzle matches. So essentially, as I like to say, stripes and polka dots. You won't have stripes and polka dots. There'll be a cohesive theme.
North and south of the Three Oaks extension will have similar buffering.
Correct. So the condition in the zoning, as Ms. Hewitt went over, is any external right-of-ways along here, along I-75 and Daniels, are going to be 15 feet wide cohesively. If we just went by land development code, then this piece up in here, any external right-of-ways could be 5 feet. And the small piece at the bottom could be 15 feet. So to have a cohesive plan with this, we conditioned 15-foot buffers across the board for all external right-of-ways with a consistent planting theme that can be established at time of DO to make sure everything is matching. So interconnections between the residential developments internally is occurring with the Spine Road, as well as externally with the property abutting many local, privately maintained, as well as arterial roadway systems. The commercial compatibility component of this is in Lee Plan Policy 6.1.1, as well as 1.3. They have to do with the traffic and access impacts, as well as the buffering. Mr. Treesh went over the traffic impacts. The site is interesting reviewing it because the roads are failing or struggling around it to support this development, but yet we have all these improvements happening off-site as part of FDOT as well as Lee County DOT, because there is an existing issue in that. With or without this development, there's an existing issue recognized, and improvements to these roadway systems is occurring as we speak. So those are being met. And then as I went over the buffering for visual harmony to not impact surrounding residents as well as on-site. The mixed-use overlay, this is in the intensive development future land use category. The connectivity with adjacent neighborhoods, the connectivity with a mix of uses in the area. Along Daniels Parkway, there is a mix of uses of fast food, convenience, food and beverage, gas station, there's medical offices, there are residential, large residential, as well as major shopping centers and grocery stores to the west. And that area is starting to come alive as you work east along Daniels. And with the improvements by FDOT, there should be some more improvements in that area to support the residents as well as the other commercial uses. Lee Plan Policy 11.2.6 talks about mixed-use overlay, encouraging you to utilize bonus density. Mr. Saraceno is going to go over this a little bit. The applicant is proposing bonus density and has the opportunity to utilize Greater Pine Island transfer of density units at time of development order. And the approval is based on those dwelling unit densities. That's the total dwelling units. Kind of went over the surrounding land uses. Ms. Hewitt went over this in detail. It's interesting that during the review, we've been reviewing this for quite some time, these projects, these off-site parcels to the west have all been purchased by Lee County to support phase 2 coming through here. At the time of the original, these were individually owned, and now these properties have been purchased by Lee County. This one, is my understanding, is in the process of being purchased. This one has not been purchased. It's a private development.
So those parcels acquired by Lee County will accommodate the road alignment and any stormwater management needs? Is that
Correct. And Mr. Treesh had the aerial from the Lee County DOT in his presentation showing where the areas of interconnection to Fiddlesticks as well as the stormwater is going to be located.
So basically, the only parcel that is not acquired by the county is the one, that notch there?
This one right here, as well as this one right here. And it's my understanding this one right here is being worked on for purchase. So looking at the west, you can see, like I mentioned, a lot of it is in Lee County's hands. The frontage, 9300 Daniels, has a mix of commercial uses along this area, from gas stations, fast food, to the CVS. You have the public shopping center right here. And then looking at the north, it abuts Daniels on this little sliver right here. But then looking across Daniels, there is a CPD that abuts Renaissance. The height restrictions on the CPD is 75 feet. And the Armory right here, Armory Storage, which was approved in 2003, is at 30 feet. And Renaissance is at 35 feet. So the tallest would be in this region right here, associated with this zoning resolution, at 75 feet to the north. And the future land use category changes in Renaissance to sub-outlying suburban and wetlands up in this region. And then this, of course, went to intensity, it's intensive development. So to the east is I-75. There's a mix of public facilities in here. The Jetport Loop development has a mix of sheriff offices, post office. This is all in the trade port and general interchange. 75 feet is the height in this MPD right here, which was resolution 02032. South is Old Hickory. This CPD that's right here to the south was rezoned, resolution Z03026 with a 75-foot height. This is part of the extension and then stormwater management in this region. Mr. Treesh went over the sufficient access on the property. There is a temporary access for construction traffic. The main entrance, the focal point, if you will, is going to be on Three Oaks Parkway. And there is a condition in the zoning recommended by staff for the signalization analyzation at time of development order to see if a signal needs to be addressed in this region. And that is condition 11. So this is the Daniels 9300 that Mr. Treesh talked about. It is ingress only, and I'm not sure if you've done your site visit or not, but when you do the site visit, you will see, as I mentioned with the surrounding uses, there is fast food, convenience, food and beverage, and car sales along this frontage road. And when you go, there's a stoplight here. And so when you enter this way, when you're coming to the west and take a left, and you want to go to the businesses to the west, you just swoop on in. But if you're over in one of these uses to the east of this intersection, you come through and take a right and you're in queue for the light. Well, so are these people. So you have this bottleneck that occurs right in here. So this is why with improvements to Daniels 9300 and what Lee County DOT worked on during the review of this process, the ingress only came into play in this region. And condition 4, as part of the 48-hour letter, has been revised to allow for construction traffic to have ingress, egress in this region until such time it goes vertical construction and Three Oaks Parkway Extension Phase 1 is opened. And so with that, any other improvements for the compatibility for traffic will be looked at with the intense TIS that comes in at time of development order, along with the signalization analyzation as part of condition 11. Environmental Sciences, Mr. Brown-Collins talked about the wetlands that were on site, the isolated wetlands there in this region right here. This is the flux map as part of the review process. So this is all going to be impacted. The wetland will be preserved, the cypress dome that's in this region, and the developments working around that. There is the issued ERP, and the preservation of 0.79 acres of wetland is on the master concept plan. It is not recognized on the ERP. There will need to be the modification to that ERP to recognize the wetland as well as the lake and the building in the southern piece, which I'm going to go over in a little bit. As mentioned, the Eagle Nest has been abandoned. I went over the mixed-use overlay open space, and this is the mixed-use overlay sections, 20% open space. The indigenous for the entire site is required is 5.31. There's only 0.79 acres of indigenous on the site. So the remaining of the indigenous open space will be represented as general open space as part of the landscaping. The south portion I mentioned is 40% open space. The landscaping, I went over that with the 15-foot wide buffer. And that's all external right-of-ways, and that's part of a condition that the staff has recommended and has worked through during the 48-hour letter with the applicant. Wetlands. I want to go over this a little bit because it affects density and segue into Mr. Saraceno's testimony. This is the ERP that's been issued. So there's a lake that's located in the southern 2 parcels right now on the ERP where our MCP shows a building on half of it. So that will have to have a permit modification at some point to show that what the applicant is proposing in the ERP is consistent with what is, if it's approved, is approved in the master concept plan as part of the development order. And the impacts to the wetlands have been allocated in the density calculations. And there is a condition in the zoning recommended by staff that there is consistency between the state permit and the development order. So that is the safeguards so that we can make sure that there's a permit modification. The dot right here is Miss LaRoque went in through the drainage pipe and everything here. I'm not going to belabor any of that with the surface water management, but there is an easement that allows them to drain into Old Hickory. There might need to be some improvements to that piping in there to accommodate the drainage. Natural resources, this is the location blown up of the area of the drainage. There are conditions with the 6 Mile Cypress watershed for water quality as part of natural resources conditions. Urban services, we did receive a revised letter for the Lee County utilities, so there is significant availability for the potable and sanitary water and sewer access. The roadway infrastructure is there. We did receive a revised letter for the South Trail Fire District that the times can be met from the 1.20 mile fire station. Ms. Hewitt went over the EMS and the sheriffs, the bike pedestrian lane. It is in Lee Plan Map 3D, and it is on the Lee Tran Route 50. I wanted to go over the bus stop a little bit that was requested as part of the school district. So there was a school district letter submitted, and I wanted to ask the question of the hearing examiner, do you want staff and applicant to work on a condition, or do you need a depiction on the MCP as part of that?
Well, I was going to put in a condition that requires that there be an off-road school bus loading zone, one or more actually, because you've got a couple of pods of residential. And I reiterate that we're on an arterial road, and that spine road is going to serve over 1,000 units. So I think this is something critical that has to be addressed to conform with the Lee plan. It would be great if it could be incorporated into the master concept plan. I want to allow flexibility, however. So if you show it on the master concept plan, we can craft a condition that says that may be relocated, but it must be provided, one or more. I would like to avoid the situation where we have a school bus pulling over on the side of Three Oaks Parkway and children are standing there at the edge of Three Oaks Parkway waiting for the various buses to pick them up. Same thing with that spine road. People are going to go cooking down that road. It's almost a straightaway, and I think we need to take that into account in order to be consistent with the plan.
And staff understands that. We've had a conversation with the applicant a little bit, because there is an amenity center that's proposed. It's on the master concept plan. So I'm going to let the applicant kind of address what their game plan is. Staff would encourage a condition rather than detail on the master concept plan, unless, as you said, that condition can be crafted so that if something does change, that we don't have to come back through zoning because of a bus stop issue internally to the site because it was shown on the master concept plan.
But
So,
I do want a condition that requires there to be provision in each residential pod for bus stop.
okay, got it. I just wanted to ask that question so that we can start brainstorming on that.
Right, and I think we're gonna leave the record open anyway,
Yep.
so if, however they wanna handle the master concept part, I can offer a suggestion on where the language can start for the condition, or you guys can craft it, and then I'll massage it to where I feel like it needs to be.
Understood, okay. Okay, I'm not going to belabor the schedule of uses. We're in agreement with the schedule of uses. There's an addition of fire, EMS, and sheriff station, which staff is in agreement with.
The one use that wasn't in there?
The one use that wasn't
Every
in
use
there.
In the
Yeah.
world is in there.
Well, so this are the, I wanted to put a height slide in just because this has to do with compatibility. So how the applicant has designed the site is to have the taller structure closer to the arterial and I-75. So you have a 90-foot building up at the northern end, and as you work down to the south, it transitions to lower height. So you have the 60-foot height on the outskirts here, 45 here, and then the commercial could be 35 in this region with a 60-foot high hotel if they choose to go that route. The sensitivity came in on this bottom parcel, the southernmost parcel, because of the distance to Old Hickory. So it is at a 35 maximum height. So I just wanted to kind of go over that slide a little bit because that has to do with how we reworked the site several times with height, with buffering, with the lay of the land on what was going to go on the master concept plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Saraceno, who's going to go over density on this project. And this is a diagram from part of it from his staff report.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Joe Saraceno. I'm a planner with the Planning Section of the Lee County Department of Community Development. As has previously been mentioned, I have not been accepted as an expert witness in this venue, and I would like to be accepted as an expert witness in the Lee Plan and the Land Development Code at this time. I have several copies of my resume that I can distribute if I can approach.
Thank you. I just need one.
I'll give one to the applicant just to be safe.
And if you can just take a few minutes and briefly go over your educational experience and your work experience as it relates to the Lee Plan and Land Development Code.
Absolutely. So I obtained a Bachelor's of Science in Economics from Florida Gulf Coast University in May of 2022. And currently I am about halfway through a Master of Urban and Regional Planning degree from the University of Florida. In June of 2022, I began working as a planner with the Department of Community Development in the Planning Section. Typically, my duties involve coordinating reviews of comprehensive plan amendments and presenting staff recommendations to the local planning agency and the Board of County Commissioners, reviewing rezonings and development orders for consistency with the Lee Plan, providing research to guide changes to the Land Development Code and to the Lee Plan, and importantly for my testimony today, calculating allowable density for properties and confirming the calculation of density provided by applicants. All right, so with the complicated nature of this, I kind of wanted to just break down piece by piece what the density we're looking at here is. For the standard density, with the uplands calculated at the intensive development rate, that's 14 dwelling units per acre. So that includes all the areas in the intensive development, the commercial areas within the mixed use overlay, and the protected wetlands on site, which is that cypress head that was previously identified. And additionally, with the impacted wetlands, those still count towards the density at a rate of 1 dwelling unit per 20 acres. So it gets the applicant approximately 0.29 dwelling units, which is not much. They are entitled to include that in their overall calculation of density. So with the standard dwelling units allowed, that would be about 777 dwelling units. In regards to the bonus density, the intensive development future land use category allows bonus density up to 22 dwelling units per acre, so an additional 8 dwelling units per acre on the upland areas in the intensive development future land use category, including the commercial areas and the mixed use overlay, and including the preserved wetlands, not including the impacted wetlands. And then finally, an additional 8 dwelling units per acre. Oh, excuse me, let me backtrack. So that allows them an additional 444 dwelling units. In the intensive development future land use category, the applicant's also entitled to go up to 30 dwelling units per acre if utilizing Greater Pine Island transfer of development units. And that is an additional 8 dwelling units per acre, so very similar to the standard bonus density. That includes the upland areas, the areas within the mixed use overlay that are commercial, and the protected wetlands, but again excludes the impacted wetlands. So that could add an additional 444 dwelling units, but the applicant has only requested 1,234 dwelling units. So in the end, only 13 of the dwelling units requested would need to be with Greater Pine Island TDUs. And that's really all. It's very brief, but there's a lot of moving parts with this. So if you have any questions, or if I'm hearing examiner has any questions.
I appreciate the table. It really crystallizes where all the units are coming from, so thank you for that, and thank you for your concise presentation.
Thank you.
And the box has cut off the 13. So there's a 13 down there, but you have the paper copy.
I've got it on the paper copy.
So Ms. Hewitt went over when you request bonus density, there are certain requirements in LDC section 2-146B. She went over these in detail. Mr. Treesh covered the additional traffic. It's not going to go through a residential area. It's going to use the extension that's being constructed. The public facilities are there. We're not in the coastal high hazard, so this doesn't apply. And it is compatible with the existing and planned surrounding uses. As I stated on the record, we've worked extensively with the surrounding residential land uses to come up with a master concept plan, and the applicant's done a really good job with being sensitive to that. The deviations, again, not going to belabor them. Most of them have to do with the 10,000-foot hazardous wildlife zone. So whenever you're 10,000 feet from airport operations, you cannot provide littoral plants because that draws in wading birds that could have health safety issue on planes landing at the airport. So these deviations are necessary, and how staff handles it is to allow for wetland trees to go in at 100%, utilizing the calculation of the littorals. And so the next deviation was, and these are the locations of the deviation, mostly in lakes. The last deviation is the access, providing two means of ingress and egress. Because of the size of parcel 6, they are requesting 1. And staff is in agreement with that, as well as the fire department. And that is located down at the south. And then with that, staff finds that the applicant has met the findings, and we conclude that it's appropriate to approve this with conditions included in the 48-hour letter as well as the staff report. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that concludes the parties' presentations. Now I will accept testimony from members of the public. I'm going to go through the sheets I have in my bin here, and then once I get through them, I will invite anyone else that would like to speak to come to the podium, and then we'll close public input and we'll go back to the parties. Richard Mersman.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Were you present when I administered the oath?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for
Good
coming.
morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. My name is Richard Mersman. I am a resident of Old Hickory Golf and Country Club, a member of the Master Board. I'm also on an ad hoc committee that has been working on this particular project to protect our interests and the interests of our neighbors, Fiddlesticks Golf and Country Club, the Legends, Cypress Preserve, and the Villas at Daniels. We have met half a dozen times with all of our neighbors to communicate progress we have made on this development as the developer has changed from the original developer to Waypoint. We would like to commend the community development agencies of planning and zoning and their responsiveness and receptiveness to our input throughout this process. They've been extremely good to work with. We are in favor of this plan, with the exception of the southern 8-acre parcel, We would prefer that 8-acre parcel to be consistent with the ERP granted through South Florida Water Management District, which shows no vertical improvements on that site. And the site dedicated to lake and stormwater holding. Other than that, the sight line study that they did and the elevations that are proposing are consistent with our discussions with them, and we don't believe it impacts our development since we're the most proximate to that new development. Additionally, they have been consistent in buffering with our requests. So we think, other than the 8-acre parcel in the south, that we do concur that the mixed-use overlay shouldn't be on that site, so we're happy with that. And that's our comments for this morning.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Kathleen Lola?
I don't wish to speak. I don't wish to speak.
Just so that you know, if you don't speak at this hearing here, you will not have an opportunity to address the commissioners. Okay, thank you. Fran Wilson?
She left.
Okay, that's all the sheets I have. Are there any other members of the public that are present that would like to put remarks on the record? Seeing none, we will close public input, and we are back to the parties for any concluding remarks.
Good afternoon again, Madam Hearing Examiner, or maybe it's still morning, good morning. For your record, Richard Aiken with Henderson Franklin. There's not much to address from the public. The one comment that Mr. Merschman made was regarding the 8-acre parcel to the south of the Three Oaks alignment. We understand those comments. Currently, the existing zoning allows 75-foot tall buildings there on that southern parcel, so we have, as part of this request, limited that to, I believe, 35 feet. So we are trying to do our very best to limit any impacts to Old Hickory, and we provide that line of sight study that would demonstrate that. So that's, I think, the only comment I have on that portion of it. I do want to circle back, if it's okay with you, to the school board, school bus issue briefly. So I've talked with with our client as well as with Ms. Workman, and I think our preference would be a condition just because of the issues with it, putting it on the master concept plan. I don't anticipate any issues with the condition like the one the hearing examiner outlined with regard to a bus pull-off stop within each residential pod. That shouldn't be a concern for us. Spoke with the client. We can craft a condition that will do that, and I think we can probably pull one from a prior zoning resolution or prior hearing examiner recommendation.
Yeah, I would like a pull-off with a dedicated waiting area so that we can keep school children off of the roadways. Like I say, it's going to be a heavily traveled area, so I think that would be in everyone's interest. Great. So let's talk about how long we're going to keep the record open for you to provide a clean set of conditions. Because from what I understand, all issues have been resolved between staff and applicant. So we have a unified list of conditions and deviations, and we're going to add a condition to address the school stop, and you'll provide this to me in clean language. You don't have to do a strike-through underscore. How much time would you like to produce this? We are November 1 right now. And I will say that I have one case I'm working on ahead of this, and then I'll be able to turn my attention to this case. So the sooner you get me the information, the sooner I can work on this case and get a recommendation out.
So I would say that we certainly don't need more than a week, and I would anticipate that we can have everything back to staff Monday or Tuesday of next week. We want to keep this moving as well. I know it's in our client's interest to do that as well.
Okay, November 8th, 4:30 p.m. on or before that time.
That'll be fine.
And we're waiting on a revised set of conditions and clean format, which will also include a condition to address the school bus stops.
We'll take care of that.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. And that closes the hearing.
Thank you.